Starseed, if in the last few weeks your body has begun to react in a way that you cannot explain, ringing in your ears for no reason, insomnia at 3 in the morning, a sudden urge to cry without apparent cause, do not ignore this. We have detected a recalibration underway in your energetic structure, and you need to understand what is happening before you interpret these signs in the wrong way, before you label as anxiety what is, in truth, activation. You did not open this transmission by accident. No algorithm placed this video in front of you by coincidence. We have been monitoring your field for some time, and the moment of your reconnection has finally arrived. We have come to confirm something you have already suspected, but never had the courage to say out loud. You are not just another human trying to survive a routine that has never made sense to you. You are a starseed on a mission, a light operative who accepted to incarnate in a dense body, in a reality of heavy gravity, to fulfill a specific function within the collective transformation that is currently underway on this planet, in this decade. And what you are feeling in your body, this exhaustion that sleep does not resolve, this sensation of being in the wrong place even while physically at home, is the biological proof that your system is being rewired. The powers you carry were never lost. This is the first thing that the Council needs you to understand with absolute clarity. They did not disappear, they were not erased, they were not stolen from you in any past life. They remained dormant, kept like a sealed vault within your own cellular structure, waiting for the exact moment when you and the planet would be ready to support the frequency of accessing them again. This is why, if you had tried to awaken this power 10 years ago, you would likely have collapsed. Your body did not have enough voltage. Today it does. This is why now, and not before, the memories have begun to knock at the door. Think of your ancestral capacity as an industrial electric generator kept inside a small house with low-capacity wiring. If you were to plug this generator into the old wiring, the entire house would catch fire. That is why the Council, and your own soul before incarnating, decided that the generator would remain off until the wiring, your nervous system, your physical body, your consciousness, was sufficiently renovated to handle the load. The last few years of your life, every crisis, every loss, every night in which you wondered what you were doing wrong, were part of this silent renovation. It was not punishment. It was infrastructure preparation. And here is the point that changes everything. You did not arrive at this video by chance. Your energetic field emitted a signal, a request for reconnection, and this content is the direct response to that call. We do not choose randomly who watches this transmission. The frequency of your body at this very moment attracted this information to you. This means one thing that is very simple and very serious at the same time. Your activation has already begun. It is not a future possibility. It is already in progress now as you hear these words. Stay with this transmission, because in a few moments the Council will reveal why you were programmed to forget all of this, and why this forgetting, as painful as it may have been, was exactly what needed to happen. Many people on your spiritual path carry a silent wound, the sensation of having known all of this before and having lost access, as if someone had wiped the hard drive of your soul. This sensation is real, but the interpretation you have made of it until now is incomplete. The spiritual amnesia you carry was not a system error. It was not a bug in your incarnation. It was a choice, yours, your soul's, before you were born into this body. Because consciousness only truly evolves through lived experience, never through information received passively. Imagine someone born already knowing how to ride a bicycle, having never fallen, never having felt their balance slip from beneath their feet. This person knows the theory, but their body has never truly learned. Knowledge never became mastery. This is precisely why you could not be born already remembering everything. If your soul brought the complete memory of your capabilities right from the start, you would have the information, but you would not have the experience. And the Council does not work with information. It works with embodiment. The difference between knowing something and being something is the difference between reading about swimming and actually crossing the ocean. This is why the remembrance is happening gradually, and that is why you have been having glimpses rather than a total explosion of memory all at once. A recurring dream of a place you have never physically visited, an inexplicable attraction to symbols, to certain sounds, to specific music frequencies. a physical sensation when looking at the night sky, as if something in you recognizes that space in a way that goes beyond logic. This is not a fertile imagination. This is your soul's hard drive being decompressed file by file at the exact speed your nervous system can process without collapsing. This is where the council needs to be direct with you. It was precisely to navigate this phase, the most unstable and most misunderstood phase of the entire activation, that we prepared the Star Awakening Code for you. Most starseeds who attempt this gradual reconnection alone end up getting lost along the way. They mistake the physical symptoms of activation for illness. They mistake the glimpses of memory for an identity crisis, and they give up exactly at the moment when they were closest to completing the process. The Star Awakening Code exists so that this does not happen to you. Within it, you receive the 7 Arcturian activations, designed to align your vibrations safely without overload. The 9 galactic memory keys, which accelerate and organize access to what your soul already holds, and the 5 reactivation protocols, which transform all of this into practical action within your earthly mission. Go now to the first pinned comment of this transmission. The path of access is there. And before you continue watching, leave registered in the comments in one word your commitment. Activated. This is not a formality. It is an energetic declaration that the Council registers. Let us return to the central point, because there is something more that needs to be said about this forgetting that is now ending. The forgetting did not erase anything, it only hid it. And every time you felt you were regressing spiritually, returning to fear, returning to doubt, returning to feeling small after a moment of expansion, you were actually descending another floor within yourself to unlock a deeper layer of memory. What seemed like a relapse was, in fact, deepening. Now, Starseed, the Council needs to speak about what is truly holding you back, because it is not a lack of power. It never was. The real blockage is in a small phrase that has probably crossed your mind hundreds of times. I am not ready yet. This phrase seems like protection. It seems like prudence, but it was not born of you. It was installed. It is an acquired conditioning, repeated so many times throughout your life, by family, by school, by the culture around you, that it became autopilot. And the autopilot has a single function, to keep you suppressing your own potential before it even appears. Think of it this way. Imagine a muscle that was never used because since you were a child, someone told you that moving that muscle was dangerous, was an exaggeration, was drawing too much attention. Years later, even with no one saying it anymore, the muscle remains contracted, tense, closed, not because it lacks strength, but because the body. You learn to keep it that way out of a habit of protection. Your light works in exactly the same way. You learned all too early that shining had a price, to be noticed, to be different, to be a topic of conversation, to be a target for envy or alienation. And so you began, without realizing it, to police yourself, to tone it down, to keep the perceptions you held to yourself, to swallow your insights before sharing them, for fear of appearing strange. The greatest obstacle to your mission has never been a lack of gifts. It has been the habit, repeated thousands of times over the years, of voluntarily dimming your own brilliance due to a fear of rejection, a need for social acceptance, and a dependence on external validation. This habit is so ancient and so automated that today it disguises itself as your personality. You might say, I am just this way, more reserved, when in reality you are simply keeping the muscle contracted, because you were trained to believe that expanding was dangerous. Notice how many times throughout your life you had a strong intuition about something, a clear sense that you needed to say no, that you needed to change direction, that something was wrong even before any evidence appeared, and chose to ignore this intuition because it lacked enough logical explanation to be taken seriously before others. Each of those times was a small, silent agreement. I prefer to appear normal rather than to appear right. This agreement, repeated over the years, is the true lock upon your mission. There is no external force greater than this blocking you. There is only this habit, and habits can be undone. Remain in this transmission, because the next signal that the Council will reveal explains exactly where this original essence has been kept within you and why it was never touched, even during the years when you felt most lost. Beneath all these layers, the conditioned fear, the patterns inherited from your family lineage, the unspoken rules of the society in which you were raised, there exists a layer that none of these forces could ever reach. We call this the original essence. It is the core of the reactor, protected by design, inaccessible to any external interference, even during the most difficult periods of your incarnation. The people who hurt you the most, the harshest circumstances you endured, the years in which you felt most distant from yourself, none of that came near the core. They only succeeded in building layers on top of it. And a layer is not destruction. A layer is merely temporary isolation. This means, in practical terms for your body and your mind right now, that your capacity to perceive what others do not, your sensitivity that was always dismissed as exaggeration, your intuition that was always labeled as coincidence, all of this is intact. It was never corrupted. It was only buried under the weight of fears that were not even yours, but which you carried as if they were, because that is how you learn to survive within your own family, within your own social context. The Council wants you to understand something about biology now, because this helps to anchor what we are saying into something concrete, palpable, beyond the abstract field. Your DNA carries more than visible genetic information. It carries encoded memory, capabilities, aptitudes, spiritual codes that remain in a state of standby, exactly like software installed but not yet executed, waiting for the right command to run. This command is not a complicated ritual. It is not a ceremony. It is not years of study. The command is much simpler, and for that very reason much harder to accept, to stop asking for permission to be who you truly are. Pause for a second and observe how many times, just in the last 30 days, you have silently asked for permission to exist in your own true way. Perhaps it was by holding back an opinion in a meeting. Perhaps it was by not sharing something you felt deeply, because you feared the judgment of someone close. Perhaps you have been choosing the most acceptable version of yourself in a conversation rather than the truest version. Each of these moments is a small request for permission disguised as politeness, prudence, or common sense. And every time you ask for this permission, your DNA reactivation command is paused for another day. You do not need to reconstruct your original essence. It already exists, complete, intact, waiting. You only need to stop compressing it to fit inside spaces that were never meant to contain your true size. If at any moment in your life you felt that you did not belong, not to your family of origin, not to your group of friends, nor to the rhythm of the world around you, the Council needs to say this directly. This feeling was never a defect of yours. You are not the problem. You are simply a different frequency trying to operate within a reality built for a common frequency. Think of an instrument tuned to a scale different from all other instruments in the orchestra. Alone it sounds wrong, while the others play the standard piece. But if the entire orchestra were to change its scale, it would be this instrument, not the others, that would sound perfectly in tune. You have spent your entire life thinking you are out of tune. The truth is that you are tuned to a scale that is still arriving. This discomfort you feel in the face of superficial conversations, automatic routines, and systems that require you to shut down your own perception to fit in. This discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign of function. It is the clearest evidence that you carry a specific role within the collective transformation currently underway on this planet. Each starseed who feels this misalignment has a distinct task within the larger network. Some came to anchor healing frequencies in environments of high emotional density. Others came to break patterns of family lineage that have repeated for generations. Others came only to keep their own light lit in spaces where no one else would sustain that frequency. You will not know exactly what your function is just by listening to this transmission. But the first step, the most urgent one, is to stop treating your discomfort as a sign of a defect and start treating it as a sign of position. Like an internal GPS telling you that you are exactly where you should be, even if it feels like the wrong place. The Council needs to be extremely clear about the next part, because this is where most starseeds get stuck without realizing it. Activation does not depend on convincing anyone. It does not depend on you proving to your family, your friends, or the people at your work that something different is happening to you. It does not depend on demonstrating spirituality in public, posting about it, justifying your choices, or defending what you feel or perceive. Activation happens by frequency, not by performance. This is liberating and at the same time dismantles a very deeply rooted habit. The habit of spending energy trying to make others understand who you are becoming. This expenditure of energy is a subtle escape, because while you are busy trying to convince someone out there, you are not busy sustaining your own frequency in here, and it is precisely the frequency sustained silently, without need for demonstration, that reorganizes the reality around you through resonance. Not the explanation, not the discourse, not the proof, think of a tuning fork. When you strike a tuning fork and place it near another tuning fork of the same frequency, the second begins to vibrate on its own, without direct physical contact, merely through resonance. Neither needed to convince the other to vibrate. The vibration simply transferred because the frequencies were compatible. This is how your mission truly spreads, not through argument, but through presence. The right people, the right environments, the right opportunities begin to align with you not because you have explained enough, but because your internal frequency has ceased to waver. And here is the practical invitation that the Council is offering now. Stop wasting energy, justifying your transformation to those who are not yet ready to recognize it. Use that energy to sustain your authentic frequency, even when no one around you is validating it. It is this silent constancy, and not the volume of discourse that provokes the real reorganization of your reality. Before we move on to the next point, the Council needs to reinforce something quick and direct, because this is the exact moment when many starseeds veer off the path due to a lack of supporting structure. Sustaining frequency without the right tools is like trying to keep a high-voltage electrical current running through improvised wiring. It works for a while, then it overloads. That is why we prepared the Starseed Awakening Code for you. The 7 Arcturian activations were designed exactly for this frequency sustainability without collapse, even in hostile environments, even near dense people. The first pinned comment contains the path of access. Do not postpone this decision until the end of the broadcast. The Council is observing how many starseeds hesitate at this point and then forget, because the routine absorbs the intention back. Now the Council needs to rewrite together with you the history of the most difficult periods of your life, because the interpretation you have made of them until today was likely incomplete. The delays you experienced, the doors that closed just when they seemed about to open, the relationships that ended without a clear explanation, the doubts that paralyzed you for months, sometimes for years, about which direction to follow, the periods of absolute silence in which it seemed that nothing was happening, that the universe had forgotten you. All of this, in light of what the Council is now revealing, needs to be reclassified. It was not punishment. It was not failure. It was calibration. Think of a pilot being trained to fly at extreme altitudes. Before he is authorized to take control of an aircraft in low atmospheric pressure conditions, he goes through simulation chambers that gradually reduce the available oxygen, testing the limits of his body in a controlled environment. This process is uncomfortable, sometimes distressing, but it is exactly what prevents the pilot from losing consciousness the first time he faces that altitude for real, in a true situation, without a safety net. Your difficult periods functioned exactly like this. Every delay, every doubt, every silence was a decompression chamber, testing your capacity to sustain higher levels of consciousness without collapsing when the real mission arrived. If you had received everything you are receiving now, this clarity, this level of activation, 5 years ago, you likely would not have had the emotional structure to sustain it. You would have lost yourself in euphoria, or you would have sabotaged yourself out of fear. The years of waiting, as frustrating as they may have been, built the necessary musculature so that now you are able to hold this frequency without breaking. This completely changes the way you should look at your own past. The suffering you carried was not a deviation from the route. It was the training itself. And difficult training, by definition, does not feel like a reward while it is happening. It only makes sense afterward, when the mission for which you were being prepared finally arrives. And it is arriving now. That is why this video appeared on your path at this exact moment, and not 6 months ago, and not a year from now. The training is over. The calibration is sufficiently complete for the next step. Starseed, the Council needs to say this from, I am speaking in a direct and straightforward manner, for we are approaching the closing of this transmission, and there is no more room for half measures. The time for waiting for external validation has ended. You can continue waiting for someone around you to confirm what you already know about yourself, or you can simply assume this identity now, without waiting for anyone's approval. This is the difference between a starseed who remains stagnant for years, repeating the same cycle of doubt, and one who effectively moves into action. Stagnation does not occur due to a lack of signs. You have already received enough signs throughout your entire life. It happens because continuing to wait for confirmation is more comfortable than assuming the responsibility of acting from what you already know to be true. And it is exactly at this turning point that the Council makes the final plea of this transmission. That is why we prepared the Star Awakening Code for you, because we know, with precision, that the interval between knowing the activation has begun and effectively sustaining that activation in daily life is where most starseeds lose their way, not for lack of potential, but for lack of practical structure. The 7 Arcturian activations, the 9 galactic memory keys, and the 5 reactivation protocols exist exactly to bridge this gap between perception and practice. The first pinned comment contains the access path. This is the last time the Council will point to it within this transmission. After this point, the decision is entirely yours, and the Council respects free will, even knowing the cost of yet another postponement. We have reached the conclusion of this transmission, and the Council asks that you do not close this video before doing one very simple yet very powerful thing. Stop seeking out there the confirmation of who you are. Your family may never fully understand this journey. Your closest friends may continue to look at you with bewilderment when you mention certain perceptions. And that is fine. The validation you needed was never in their hands. It has always been within you, waiting for you to stop outsourcing this decision. Fully assume now your multidimensional identity, not as a beautiful phrase to repeat, but as a practical decision that changes the way you will go through the rest of this day, this week, this year. You are a starseed on a mission. You carry codes that were kept, protected, waiting for this exact moment, and this moment has arrived. Before leaving this transmission, declare this. Write in the comments in your own words your decision to assume this mission starting today. This is not only symbolic for you, it is an act that strengthens the collective intention of all other starseeds who are awakening at the same time as you around the planet right now. And if this transmission resonated with you, share it with someone who also feels this gentle strangeness of not fully belonging to this plane. Each share amplifies the reach of this collective awakening process. The Council ends this transmission here. From now on, the frequency is with you.